The sun had barely broken through the early morning haze over Atlanta when Flight 228 prepared for departure. Inside Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, a typical Thursday morning crowd bustled through terminal's businessmen sipping coffee. Tired parents juggling toddlers and high schoolers chatting in clusters, half asleep but buzzing with anticipation. Among them was 15-year-old Kaisha Morgan, wearing her school's navy hoodie and a backpack that seemed to weigh more than her. Her robotics team was headed to Memphis for the National Youth Engineering Expo, where their homemade drone project had earned a finalist spot. For most kids, the flight was just a means to an end a ride to the competition. For Kaisha, it was something more. Planes had fascinated her since she was little. While others watched cartoons, Kaisha watched cockpit footage and air crash documentaries, absorbing every bit of knowledge she could. She knew the names of major commercial jets by sight, could recite emergency procedures from memory, and had logged hundreds of hours on a flight simulator her mom had installed on their old laptop. Her seat was 1-4A, by the window. She liked the left side better. It gave her a cleaner view of the engine, and on most routes out of Atlanta, that side faced north when they banked. She sat quietly, glancing out the oval window, her headphones resting around her neck. Behind her, her teammates were giggling and comparing snack stashes. In front of her, a man in a gray blazer was furiously typing into his laptop. She barely noticed. Her eyes were fixed on the tarmac, watching the mechanics do their final checks. Kaisha's mother, Angela, had texted her minutes earlier. "Text me when you land. And stay calm if turbulence hits. You know what to do. Love you always." Kaisha smiled and texted back, "Love you more. Wheels up in a few." At 8:06 a.m., the engine spooled up with a rising hum, and Flight 228 began to taxi. It was a twin-engine Embraer, ERJ-145, a regional jet designed for short hops like this one. Kaisha had studied its specs, over 50 feet long, max altitude 37,000 feet, cruising speed of 500 miles per hour. Pilots often called it a hot rod for how agile it was in the air. The captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Southern Skies Flight 228, non-stop service to Memphis. Estimated flight time is 1 hour and 6 minutes. Weather looks smooth over Alabama and Mississippi. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride." Kaisha nodded quietly, though her mind was already in the sky dot as the plane turned onto the runway. She instinctively sat up straighter. Takeoff was her favorite part, the raw power, the feeling of gravity giving way to speed and lift. She watched. The runway markers blur, felt the nose rise, and in that moment, everything else, homework, team nerves, even her fear of crowds, disappeared. There was only the sky. The plane leveled off at cruising altitude. Cabin lights dimmed, the seatbelt. Signs pinged off, and flight attendants began pushing carts. Most passengers turned to their phones or closed their eyes. But not Kaisha. She opened her backpack, pulled out her notepad, and began scribbling formulas about thrust-to-weight ratios. Even now, in the sky, she was thinking about how flight worked. Her chaperone, Mr. Lopez, leaned across the aisle. "Still studying planes, Kaisha?" She looked up with a shy smile. "Yes, sir. Just reviewing some stall speed data. I like to see how close I am to the real thing," Mr. Lopez chuckled. "Someday you're going to be flying one of these things. Not just riding them." Kaisha shrugged. "Maybe that's the goal." What she didn't say, but often thought, was that she'd never seen a black girl in a pilot's seat. Not in real life. Not on television. Not in any simulator videos. But that didn't stop her from imagining it. Someday, she told herself, maybe she'd be the first dot from the cockpit. A brief ding sounded, followed by a second officer checking. A weather update. Everything was normal, smooth, no cause for concern. Back in 14A, Kaisha looked down at the world below. Tiny lakes shimmered in the morning light. The plane drifted above the clouds like it was weightless. All the systems she had studied, all the complex machinery and flight controls, were quietly working in harmony. No one aboard that flight suspected what was coming. For now, it was just another short-haul journey, just another plane in the sky. Kaisha Morgan? Just another quiet black girl in a hoodie, scribbling math and dreaming of wings. But in less than an hour, that girl would become the most unlikely hero the passengers of Flight 228 would ever know. The flight had been uneventful until at WASN T.40 minutes after takeoff. Flight 228 was cruising smoothly at 31,000 feet. The fasten seatbelt sign was still off. Flight attendants were handing out juice and peanuts. Kaisha had just jotted down notes about jet engine bypass ratios when the lights overhead flickered. Briefly, then again. A faint thump echoed from under the floor. She paused, looking up. From the cockpit. A muffled alarm rang. Just one beat, but sharp and out of place. Kaisha knew that sound. In simulators, it often preceded something serious. Suddenly, the aircraft jolted. Not a bump like turbulence, but a deep, unnatural shudder. The left wing dipped momentarily before stabilizing. The engines, which had hummed steadily for over half an hour, began to sputter. Passengers around her looked up. Someone, too, rows ahead, dropped their drink. A child cried. Then, the unmistakable sound of silence. Both engines were out. The eerie quiet broken only by the wind. Screaming against the fuselage settled like a fog over the cabin. Kaisha's stomach dropped. She'd never heard this in a real plane before, but she knew exactly what it meant. A second later, the oxygen masks dropped with a hiss. Panic erupted. People screamed. Others cried out in confusion. Cell phones lit up. Someone in the back was already praying aloud. The overhead lights flickered again, dimming to emergency mode. Then came the captain's voice. His tone was calm, but strained. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We are currently experiencing a dual-engine failure. I repeat, a dual-engine failure. We are gliding and assessing emergency landing options. Remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Follow this instructions of our crew. We are trained for this. It didn't help much. Kaisha's hands gripped the armrests, but not from fear yet. Her mind raced. She'd read dozens of crash reports involving dual-engine failures. They were rare, extremely rare, but not impossible. She remembered one Air Transat 236, another U.S. Airways Flight 1549, the Miracle on the Hudson. She recalled every detail. Kaisha closed her eyes and inhaled slowly. Focus. Think. They were still high. That meant time. Jets glide better than most people think. At this altitude, they had maybe 20 to 25 minutes of controlled descent, if handled properly. But the real question was, where could they land? In the front of the cabin, flight attendants moved quickly, instructing passengers to tighten seatbelts, prepare for possible impact, and use the brace position. One of them, a tall black woman named Dana, noticed Kaisha looking unusually calm. Dana kneeled by her row. Are you okay, sweetheart? Kaisha nodded slowly, but then said something that made Dana pause. They need to pitch to best glide speed, about 190 knots. And they need to call Memphis Center now, if they haven't already. Dana blinked. You know that? Kaisha hesitated. I fly simulators. A lot. I've trained this kind of failure 100 times. They need to keep flaps up, gear up, until final. Any added drag could be fatal right now. Dana didn't know what to say. She studied Kaisha for a moment, this quiet teenage girl, seated. Alone, calm under pressure while the cabin around her descended into chaos. The girl didn't just know what she was saying. She understood it. Another jolt rocked the plane. The left wing dropped again, sharper this time. That's when the intercom chimed and went dead. Passengers froze. Even Kaisha's heart skipped. That wasn't normal. Loss of engine power was one thing, but a complete systems blackout? From the front, a second flight attendant rushed toward Dana. Cockpit's not responding. Captain looks disoriented. We might have electrical issues too. Dana looked back at Keisha. Without another word, she reached for Kaisha's hand. Come with me. The aisle was chaos. A woman sobbed into her phone, recording what sounded like a goodbye message. An elderly man was gripping his armrests so tightly, his knuckles had gone white. As Kaisha followed Dana to the front, people stared. No one had any idea what was going on, only that the fear was real and growing fast. Dana led her through the galley and knocked on the cockpit door twice before unlocking it with the emergency key. The door swung open. Inside, the captain looked pale, sweat pouring down his face. The co-pilot was working frantically, trying to restart the engines. The instrument panel was lit with red and yellow warnings. Alarms blared. The altitude was dropping steadily, 28,500 feet, and falling. The co-pilot glanced back at them. She knows sim protocols, Dana said quickly. She says glide ratio. Flaps, she knows stuff. Kaisha stepped forward, cautiously. She didn't want to overstep. Sir, she said to the co-pilot, I know I'm just a passenger, but I've trained for this kind of failure. You're too high to restart the engines now, unless you're using a windmill restart. Are you trying that? The co-pilot blinked. He was young, maybe late 20s. His eyes flicked to the captain, who was slumped slightly. Kaisha moved closer. If you maintain a glide at 190 knots, your descent rate should be about 1,500 feet per minute. That gives you around 12 minutes to find a safe field or runway. Where's the nearest airport? The co-pilot's hands hovered over the yoke. Memphis, about 60 miles southwest. We can make it, Kaisha said. But you have to start gliding perfectly now. Flaps up, gear up, no drag. Focus on best glide. Call ATC. For a moment, he hesitated. Then he nodded. All right, help me. The cockpit was warmer than Kaisha expected. A faint odor of electrical heat and sweat hung in the cramped space. Warning lights blinked across every panel like a Christmas tree gone haywire. The plane was now descending through 27,000 feet. Kaisha stood just behind the first officer's shoulder, gripping the back of his seat, mind racing but voice steady. The captain was clearly struggling. His face had gone ashen, his breathing shallow and rapid. Dana leaned in and quietly confirmed what the co-pilot had suspected. He might be suffering from early hypoxia or shock. That meant the first officer was flying solo and stressed to the edge of breaking. Kaisha